Here are the detailed ways the Rockefeller-backed initiatives influenced and, in some ways, controlled Ethiopia's food system by linking it to Western markets. 1. Green Revolution in Ethiopia. Foreign control over seeds and inputs. The Rockefeller Foundation, through the Green Revolution, introduced high-yield wheat and maize varieties in Ethiopia. These crops were genetically modified, GM, or hybrid seeds that required the use of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. Non-reproducible, meaning farmers could not save seeds for the next season. They had to buy new seeds yearly from companies like Monsanto, Syngenta, and Bayer, which had ties to Rockefeller-backed initiatives. Impact: Ethiopian farmers became dependent on Western agribusinesses for seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides instead of using their own traditional farming methods. Loss of traditional seed varieties. Ethiopia has thousands of indigenous crops, especially teff, sorghum, and barley, which were pushed aside in favor of wheat and maize to align with international markets. Example: the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, co-founded by the Rockefeller Foundation, pushed Ethiopia to adopt commercial seed laws that restricted farmers from exchanging or saving seeds, forcing them to buy from corporations. 2. Shift from local food crops to export, cash crops. Rockefeller-backed organizations encouraged Ethiopia to focus on cash crops for export, such as coffee, Ethiopia's biggest export; flowers, for European markets; sugarcane, for global trade. Impact: less land for staple food production. Farmers grew crops for foreign markets instead of local consumption, increasing Ethiopia's food insecurity. Profits flowed to foreign investors. Many large-scale farms producing cash crops were owned or financed by foreign companies, not local farmers. Example: the Ethiopian government leased millions of hectares of farmland to foreign investors, India, Saudi Arabia, and China, under policies influenced by Rockefeller-linked institutions like the World Bank and USAID. As a result, Ethiopia had more land producing flowers for Europe than wheat for its own people. 3. Fertilizer and agrochemical dependency. Western companies producing synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, for example, Cargill, Bayer, Monsanto, had strong links to Rockefeller-funded agricultural programs in Ethiopia. Impact: Ethiopian farmers moved away from traditional organic farming and became dependent on imported fertilizers and chemicals, which were expensive. When fertilizer prices rose in 2007 to 2008, Ethiopia faced severe food shortages because its farms could not sustain productivity without imported inputs. Example: in 2010, Ethiopia spent over $400 million on fertilizer imports, despite being one of the poorest countries. This money could have been used to support local organic farming instead. 4. Land grabs and displacement of Ethiopian farmers. Policies encouraged by Rockefeller-linked institutions, World Bank, USAID, AGRA, led to massive land leases to foreign investors. Smallholder Ethiopian farmers lost access to land, as millions of hectares were leased to foreign agribusiness companies. Impact: mass displacement. Farmers were evicted from ancestral lands and forced into low-paying agricultural jobs. Food shortages increased because land once used for local food production was converted into large plantations for exports. Example: Karuturi Global, an Indian agribusiness giant, leased 300,000 hectares in Gambela, Ethiopia, for commercial farming. Most of the crops produced were exported, while local communities faced food shortages. 5. Western-controlled food aid system. When food shortages occurred due to these policies, Ethiopia became dependent on Western food aid, mainly from the US and EU. This created a cycle where Ethiopia was forced to accept Western agricultural policies in exchange for aid. Example: the US provided wheat aid through USAID, but Ethiopia was required to buy American agricultural products instead of supporting local farming. Final consequence: Ethiopia became tied to Western markets. Ethiopian food production was shaped by foreign corporations, Western-backed policies, and export-driven agriculture. The country lost control over its food system, and small-scale farmers suffered the most.